Hello everybody, welcome to Our Culture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Josh, my friend, and everybody out there in the audience you might know, there's a bit of a talking point doing the rounds in regards to the Series S and Baldur's Gate 3, i.e. Baldur's Gate 3 is apparently struggling to get running on the Xbox Series S, and Phil Spencer over in Gamescom has been asked by IGN just what's going on.
What is going on?
Why is this happening? Why are you holding back the generation, Phil? Not what he was asked. But it's still very much the underlying thing here that I'm going to get to. So yeah, Phil Spencer talking to IGN over at Gamescom about the Series S. He said that there are feature differences between the platforms, i.e. the Series S, the Series X. We have an ability to kind of handle that and see how it works. Where teams are going to choose to focus their time and their effort is up to them. We're here to support them and what they want to do. We want to make sure that games, when they're launching on competitive platforms, are also launching on Xbox. So we're going to learn from this experience as well, because we don't love that. But I don't think it's something that's a fatal flaw in the system. It's partners prioritizing their time, us listening and being a good partner to them. And you see some amazing games doing great work across Series X and X. Diablo 4, Starfield, Forza, and I want to make sure that console gaming is accessible to more people, and we think the price point of the console is a pretty important part of that. Now, there's way more to this.
Yeah.
Loads of devs weighing in and stuff across the last few months, really, as a general conversation on the Series S's power, but thoughts at the minute?
The quote there that
Yes.
it's about like devs prioritizing their time and partners prioritizing their time, that's the only bit that kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, if you hand them a machine that makes development harder, like makes that development time longer, that doesn't sound necessarily to me like a developer problem. That kind of sounds like a you problem in a way. The fact that you don't have Baldur's Gate 3, the highest rated game of the year so far, at least at the time of recording, on Xbox at all, because you have this parity
feature
stipulation in place, and because the developers can't get it running on the Series S, you've literally, because of that, handed Sony an accidental exclusive that just so happens to be the highest rated game of the year on the same day that your exclusive, Starfield, comes out. So to me, if you're running into issues like that, that is, yeah, it might be on the devs to prioritize their time, but if I was Xbox, which, you know, thankfully I'm not, because I'd run that business into the ground, I'd be thinking like, okay, we need to fix this. Like, why is this happening? We can't let this happen again.
It's a really weird thing, and we'll get to how it makes general sense in terms of the optics of the Xbox brand. They want to make sure that you have, you know, if you get a Series S, you want to be able to play everything that's on the Series X, have a Series S version of the high-end game or whatever. But obviously, like I said, various developers have weighed in on this, because when you're going from the beginning of development, having to factor in a lower-end console when you want to aim for a PS5 or a Series X level, window is a hard thing to do. So Naughty Dog senior character artist Del Walker offered some thoughts as well, saying if people knew how hard it was to port a PlayStation 5 game onto Xbox Series S, they'd wish the console didn't exist. There's multiple tweets just coming from last night and various responses to people as well. Every single multi-platform title would be superior. He also said Xbox Series S is hamstringing the whole damn console cycle. Good luck getting Baldur's Gate 3 to run nicely on that thing. Now, Walker does say, he's obviously very aware that he's Naughty Dog dev, he's going to be doing games for PlayStation. He does say that because of that affiliation, his thoughts are literally astoundingly biased. But he says that when it comes to the issue itself, someone asked him, why is it that things can't run on the Series S? He said that's down to power limitations mostly, but lots of small differences in terms of raw performance, memory allocation, and storage speed. This goes alongside quotes from back in 2022, Rocksteady's Lee Devenald saying that the Series S was not much better than a last-gen console, and Remedy's Thomas Pure saying that it's not just a case of optimizing later in development for the Series S, you have to take into account the technical limitations from the beginning of development. Nobody really wants to think of that when you start making your game when everything is possible. Which is just all fascinating stuff. Like, I want to bring in, Phil Spencer, the reason this is all happening. Yeah. It's obviously to get the most games out there as possible, get the most people playing Xbox games, Game Pass, just getting more experiences out there. And that kind of makes sense, but it's like as a nice idea. It's a nice idea to get out there.
It is.
More games in front of people. I do want to throw in the market share though, because Phil's whole point here is that we need to have the Series X feature parity clause and keep the Series X console price down, because that's the only way that all this stuff makes sense. However, I don't think that does make sense, because they're losing the market share. They only have combined Series X and S only has about 15% of the market share according to VG charts, with the PlayStation 5 taking up 46% and the Switch taking up 38.5%. So, it's not like people are buying the high-end systems. Like, the Switch makes the case for the low end, but they have the games regardless.
That's all I would sort of say in response to that. Like, obviously the PlayStation 5 success proves that people are willing to pay the higher-end price point for these higher-end systems, but has the Switch Switch maybe commandeered that, market share because it's a more affordable console in like that respects. I don't know. Obviously, the Series S, to my knowledge, is like still cheaper than the Switch, if I recall. And it is. There's a lot of different facets to this, man. Because like if Xbox only had the Series X and was pumping out, this early in the generation, high quality Series X exclusives. I think just where the industry is at right now, like they have an uphill battle either way to kind of claw that market share back. Since the Xbox One, we've been dealing with a market share that is similar to this. And as far as I'm aware, the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S is outpacing where the Xbox One, or the rate the Xbox One was selling last generation. So it's not like they're doing bad. Like they're making those gains across the board. So I don't know. Playing devil's advocate, I don't know if taking the S out the equation would give them that market share boost for them to compete directly with the Switch or
not necessarily, but it would allow the generation to fully kick in. I guess is my personal thoughts on this. Is that the fact that the Series S has to be factored in because it does have specs that are more in line with the last gen console. You do have various projects being kickstarted that do need to factor in the Series S if they're going to be multi-platform. I think that just is a naff thing when we're talking about trying to take full advantage of a PlayStation 5 or a Series X or whatever the biggest hardware is on the market. At least in the console space, you just fundamentally can't develop for those big systems if you want something to be multi-platform, which then brings budgets into the equation, brings sales into the equation, etc. So I do, and it's completely just me, think the Series S is holding everything back.
Yeah.
Like there's very clear data for this as well.
Well, I mean, like this is the case. I'm not a game developer. I'm not going to argue against the game developers' quotes that you've mentioned there. Obviously they know way more about developing games than I do. They know about the difficulties that I have no idea.
Same for me.
I don't know how to. What's a game engine? Is it a physical thing? Do I have to go in and tweak it like a car engine? That was a joke. I know more about the stuff that I'm letting on. That was a gag. But the point is, when you talk about the Xbox Series S holding things back,
yes,
at this moment in time, I'm sure it will be an issue in the long term. My furor, if we could go that hard, is more on like old gen machines holding the console generation back at this moment in time. I mean, the next Call of Duty is going to be a cross-gen release. Armored Core coming out this week, which has great reviews right now. That's a cross-gen release.
Jedi Survivors
be bad?
Getting a PS4 version.
Jedi Survivors getting a PS4 version. Like we're still in this kind of cross-gen era. So I'm kind of, while I'm sure the Xbox Series S could pose a problem, I just don't see it being the main problem holding the generation back right this second.
Okay.
Because even from the the Sony side of things, I haven't necessarily seen. I've enjoyed all the games that have come out from Sony that have been exclusive, but I've not seen that kind of cutting edge next gen game where I've gone, that is far and away unachievable on older machines.
That's true.
Like and I don't mind that we haven't got there yet because, like I said, the games have been of a high quality. But until I kind of see that game, I can't really worry about the S until then.
No, I mean a lot of it. Obviously, even you bring the developer quotes that were coming in here from Rocksteady, Remedy, Naughty Dog. You're still talking about ideas of games, trying to sketch out, reach for the stars, do the whole reach for the skies, the stars, they're all up there. Then that whole idea of trying to make the biggest, most craziest game designs possible, whether that be level design, game mechanics, whatever it is. And the idea is that the Series S gets in the way of those development planning meetings and everything. It is worth throwing in Xbox's Chief Marketing Officer, Jarrett West, referring to Starfield as the starting gun for everything that they've got across the next few years. He envisions that there's going to be a relay race of first-party exclusives across the next few years. The overall idea being that Starfield is when Xbox's generation finally kicks in. And Phil's point, as if he's our friend, little Phil's point, is that Starfield is so strong on Series S and X that his point, is completely that the Series S can keep up.
Right.
And you can get some of the best games in the world if Starfield turns out like that on Series S as well.
And I'm sure that's true. All of the big Xbox exclusives that have come out have run pretty damn well on Series S.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the Digital Foundry videos that dive into this stuff, obviously there's a power difference, but the fact that you can get something as good looking as Forza Horizon 5 running pretty smoothly on the S is like something to be championed in a way, but that's never going to be Xbox's problem. Like Phil, again, not our friend, but on a first name basis apparently, was saying in your opening quote, like, it's a time issue. Xbox obviously have the time to prioritize the Series S. They're only making it for, you're only making 3 different versions, the PC version, the Xbox Series X version, and the Series S version. They're never really going to have a problem with this. It might hamper their ambitions going forward if they need this parity, but they're always going to be able to optimize. They're always going to be able to spend spend that time. It is the third-party developers like, Baldur's Gate 3's developers and Larian, the developers of the From Software developers, or whoever it is who have to kind of manage all of these different platforms. You imagine the S will become a problem then in the multi-platform sense, like you were, explaining.
I think the wider thing as well is that idea of when do we hit has the glass ceiling of game development actually just hit us, and the idea of matching budgets, the amount of money you need to put in, that idea of the hundreds of millions of dollars it takes to turn these things around, and then one of the console manufacturers saying, well, we're going to have a feature parity clause in here, so you need to make this new idea work on the old thing, and you can only get so far with that, like I said, in the development stages and the planning stages, and that from a creative standpoint, from a coding standpoint, whatever, the art departments, everything else, saying well, we can't actually do this cool new thing because we need to make it work on the previous system, and that just being a fundamental reality of developing for multi-platform.
Man, that is definitely a worry for me in the long term, especially if we get to the point where we see next-gen refreshes. There are already so many rumors about the PlayStation 5 Pro, and while I think it was Digital Foundry that did say that Xbox initially envisioned the Series X as their next-gen refresh, just they released it early, there have also been rumblings that might not necessarily be the case, and we will get another version of the Series X that is more powerful, at some point going forward. That can only make this power differential even larger, and then I do worry about how do you get the most out of the top-end system when those games have to also work on the Series S, which is, 2 rungs below it.
Yeah, and the idea that, because you only have a feature parity clause on one side, one console manufacturer, we'll see what happens with the next Nintendo Switch. There could be something there that makes sure that a game has to run on the existing Switch, which would obviously be a bad way to go when even Metal Gear Solid 2 can't hit its original frame rate. But at the same time, I just think it's a hell of a reality that we're living in, where if you're a multi-platform dev and you want to make a PS5 game, you then have to make it work on what is ostensibly last-gen specs if you want to go multi-platform, because it has to work on the adjacent and down one system. That just seems nuts to me. Can we not just make new games for the latest hardware and max them out?
It is kind of nuts, but I'll play the ultimate devil's advocate at the very end of this episode.
Please do.
And say, Scott Tailford, the Switch is so many rungs below a Series S, and the games that come out on the Switch are by all accounts great. I know some of your favourite games of the past few years have come out on that system. Like you always tell me to play Metroid Dread, Kirby, Super Mario Wonder is obviously coming out, and they are, technically inferior compared to the next-gen offering. So I kind of understand our frustrations in this regard that, the next gen might not be able to look as pretty as, it necessarily could. But if the games are hopefully solid and the games are optimized, is that not what's most important? Again, playing devil's advocate, I want to see them completely, wring the most out of these new machines. But I know to a lot of people, it's like, as long as the gameplay is solid, that's the most important thing.
No, definitely. As long as the gameplay is solid, the games are king, etc., etc. In that regard, that's first party developing for a first party system and making the most of it. If you gave any Nintendo developer access to the power of a PS5 or a Series X or whatever, I would then want them to make the most use of that.
Right.
That's I think that's a different kind of conversation, even though I know exactly what you mean. The games are still king. If we talk about market share and why the Xbox hasn't taken off, etc., I would still say that's because they don't have an Xbox system seller just yet. However, it might be Starfield. We both have people getting in touch with us, friends and family, saying, do I get an Xbox now? Is this the thing that I do? And maybe that's just indicating that Phil is right and the plan will eventually pull off. And maybe this is just them banking out of the pandemic years and finally kicking off the generation in earnest, led by the starting gun that is Starfield. Well, maybe
I hope it is. Everyone always says that we're biased towards PlayStation, and I do love PlayStation, of course I do.
I just love gaming.
At the same time, Starfield is my most anticipated game of the year by far. I'm looking forward to this thing so much, and I want this, starting gun quote to be absolutely true. I want to be swimming around in Xbox exclusives on Game Pass that are high quality, that are mind blowers, that give you a lot of bang for your buck. I want this reality to be true, and I want Starfield to be as good as I am really hoping it is, because I love Bethesda games and I just want them to have a good one.
It's beyond time that Bethesda had a home run and that Xbox was a reliable console brand to point at, like it was in the 360 days, and go, just get this system, there's loads of stuff to play on it, and we're still waiting for that to be true, but it might kick in with Starfield. But let us know what you think down in the comments below of the state of the Series S, the gaming industry in general, and the state of Xbox. And do you have a Series S? Do you think it keeps up? Do you want more from it? Etc. I'll also put a little video right here just for you, because for now I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.